In January 2024, a vessel longer than the Eiffel Tower pulled out of Miami carrying nearly 10,000 people, more than several Caribbean island nations. If you put that many humans inside a single steel container, the physics of crowd density suggest a miserable outcome. You should be standing in hour-long buffet lines, fighting for pool chairs, and listening to the deafening rumble of massive engines. But people sailing on the Icon of the Seas report the exact opposite. The pool decks feel strangely open, the promenades are quiet, and the interior looks more like a high-end Manhattan penthouse. But that quiet is merely an engineered illusion. Beneath the water slides and infinity pools, 2,350 crew members maintain an industrial complex built to the high-stakes mechanical standards of a nuclear submarine. They are managing a completely self-contained floating city. It generates its own power grid, desalinates its own water supply, operates a full hospital, and runs a waste disposal system strictly cleaner than what most countries allow on land. Royal Caribbean spent $2 billion to build this 250,000-ton machine, and almost all of that money went towards solving a single massive design problem, making all of the ship's most advanced engineering entirely invisible to the people standing right on top of it. For 25 years, the interior promenades on these vessels felt like enclosed, windowless shopping malls. But here, designers used expansive floor-to-ceiling glass walls to provide an open ocean view. That design created an immediate structural crisis. To install that much glass, engineers had to rip out the central steel beams holding up the staterooms and the massive central park area on Deck 8. Without those pillars, the upper decks had nothing to stand on. The solution funneled the massive load of 3 decks into a single sphere of finished steel. They call it the Pearl. It acts as a 52-foot kinetic art installation that guests photograph every day, unaware it keeps the ceiling from collapsing. The designers applied that same hidden logic to the crowds. To manage 7,600 guests trying to use the ship at once, they fractured the vessel into 8 self-contained zones, or neighborhoods. Each one targets a specific demographic, like families with young kids, or adults looking for a beach club vibe. You can pack every cabin and book every restaurant, and a guest at the adult infinity pool might never cross paths with a family at the water park. By managing both the physical weight and the human density in tandem, the engineering forces the ship to feel vast and empty. That massive space demands resources. Running 40 commercial kitchens, dozens of heated pools, and endless hot showers requires an industrial power plant operating 14 decks beneath the water slides, behind doors the guests will never open. Here, 6 engines burn liquefied natural gas to generate 46 megawatts of electricity in real time. It is enough active power to run a small city, all while propelling the vessel through the ocean at 22 knots. The scale of this hardware is difficult to comprehend. Each of the 3 largest Wärtsilä engines has 14 cylinders and weighs 245 tons. Picture a machine heavier than an adult blue whale and longer than a school bus, and then picture 6 of them bolted directly to the ship's keel. Engines this massive generate hundreds of degrees of thermal energy. Most marine vessels simply dump that engine exhaust heat straight overboard into the ocean as wasted energy. This chart shows how the system captures that exact thermal energy. By the time the waste heat dissipates, the ship has already used it to boil the drinking water, wash the hotel sheets, and warm the swimming pools on the upper decks. It does 4 jobs with 0 extra fuel. To actually serve the 60,000 meals cooked daily with that power, the crew uses a hidden highway running from bow to stern. They call it I-95. It allows 2,350 crew members to move forklifts, laundry carts, and endless pallets of produce entirely out of sight. The guests upstairs experience a frictionless paradise, but that abundance is entirely dependent on a hyper-efficient industrial factory churning relentlessly beneath their feet. Perhaps the most difficult illusion to maintain is stillness. A guest resting a martini on the edge of an infinity pool expects the water to remain flat, even as the vessel navigates open ocean swells and unpredictable weather. The ship's stability is constantly threatened from the inside out. When 3,000 guests walk to the port side rail to take a photo of the sunset, the vessel's center of gravity drastically shifts. Without intervention, the upper decks would roll hard enough to turn furniture into projectiles. Ballast tanks detect the tilt, pumping thousands of tons of seawater to the opposite side to rebalance the weight. To fight swells, active stabilizer fins extend below the waterline. These massive wings adjust constantly, generating hydrodynamic lift to counteract the ocean. And when the physical reality of isolating 10,000 people at sea finally breaks through, the ship has a final safety net tucked below deck. It operates a full hospital, complete with ICU beds, X-ray machines, and an operating theater capable of emergency surgery. Every second of the voyage, the vessel is fighting a quiet, invisible war against gravity, fluid dynamics, and isolation, all to maintain a perfect, unmoving facade of leisure. Which brings us to the final question. Why would a company spend $2 billion to engineer these mechanical marvels, only to intentionally hide them from the paying customers? The answer is captive economics. Remember those 8 distinct neighborhoods designed for crowd control? Because every zone has food, drinks, and paid experiences within arm's reach, guests don't wander the vessel looking for something to buy. They are already standing right next to it. This chart shows the real business model. In the first quarter of 2025, Royal Caribbean generated a daily average of $199.30 per guest from the ticket price alone, but they extracted another $91.15 a day in aggressive onboard spending for drinks, excursions, and specialty dining. When you multiply that daily revenue by 5,610 guests and run the ship out of Miami for 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, the numbers scale into a massive compounding financial engine. On the cost side, the ship is remarkably cheap to run for its size. The waste heat recovery and LNG engines make it 24% more efficient than international regulations require, and it operates with roughly the same crew size as vessels half its tonnage. The profit margins simply widen. This math works so reliably that Royal Caribbean isn't stopping with one ship. They already have 4 more identical hulls on order, launching sequentially over the next 4 years. At this extreme scale of commerce, the most lucrative strategy is engineering the machine so perfectly the customer never realizes they are standing inside it.